"Ma'am, step away from the vehicle right now." The command cracked through the cold Texas night so sharply that even the gas pumps seemed to fall silent. Naomi Carter slowly lifted her hands from the fuel nozzle and turned beneath the harsh white lights of the station canopy, rainwater sliding down the sleeves of her dark gray hoodie. Her old silver sedan sat beside pump number 4 with the engine off and the driver's door slightly open, steam curling faintly from the hood after a 3-hour drive through heavy weather outside Arlington. Across the lot, a teenage cashier froze behind the convenience store window, clutching a bag of chips halfway to a customer. 2 truckers near the diesel pumps stopped talking. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled low across the highway. Officer Ryan Keller stepped out of the patrol SUV with one hand resting near his belt, his broad shoulders glowing blue and red beneath the flashing lights. His younger partner, Tyler Dean, followed more slowly, rain tapping against the brim of his hat. Naomi's expression didn't change. She looked exhausted more than afraid, like someone who had gone too many nights without sleep. "Is there a problem, officer?" she asked calmly. Keller glanced once at her car, then back at her face. "You were parked here 15 minutes without pumping gas. Customer reported suspicious activity." Naomi looked briefly at the pump display. "My card kept declining. I was trying another account." Keller gave a short, humorless laugh. "Uh-huh." The rain thickened, ticking softly against the pavement and humming against the neon sign overhead. Naomi reached slowly into her coat pocket. "I can show you my ID." "Keep your hands where I can see them," Keller snapped immediately. The entire station stiffened at the tone in his voice. Naomi stopped moving. Her fingers remained visible beside her shoulders while cold rain gathered along her jawline. Tyler shifted uneasily beside the patrol SUV. "Sir, maybe we can just—" "I said I got it," Keller cut in sharply. He walked closer now, boots splashing through shallow puddles reflecting the spinning police lights. Up close, Naomi looked even more tired. There were faint shadows beneath her eyes, and her hoodie carried the scent of hospital disinfectant and wet fabric. Keller noticed the worn duffel bag resting on the passenger seat. "What's in the bag?" "Personal belongings." "Open the car." Naomi hesitated only a second. "Officer, I really just want to pay for my gas and get home." Keller's stare hardened. "Step away from the vehicle." Inside the convenience store, somebody quietly lifted a phone and began recording through the glass. Naomi finally stepped back from the sedan, rain soaking through her sneakers. Tyler watched her carefully. She wasn't angry. She wasn't defensive. If anything, she seemed distracted, glancing once toward the digital clock glowing above the lottery machine inside the store. 11:42 p.m. Keller noticed it too. "You in some kind of hurry?" Naomi looked at the clock one more time before answering. "Yes." "Why?" For the first time, something flickered behind her calm expression. Not fear. Concern. Deep and private. "Because 5 minutes matters tonight." Keller smirked slightly. "That's supposed to mean something?" Naomi didn't answer. Another flash of lightning illuminated the highway beyond the station, and for one brief second, Tyler noticed something metallic partially visible beneath the passenger seat of Naomi's car. Not a weapon. A badge. Dark blue with a silver eagle embossed across the center. His eyes narrowed slightly. Then Keller stepped forward and slammed the sedan door shut before Tyler could get a better look. The sound echoed across the gas station like a gunshot, and every person watching through the rain jumped. The sound lingered in the wet night long after the car door slammed shut. Naomi Carter did not flinch, but Tyler Dean noticed the way her shoulders stiffened beneath the rain-soaked hoodie. Officer Keller stepped closer until the flashing patrol lights washed blue across Naomi's face. "Hands on the hood," he ordered. Naomi obeyed without argument, placing both palms against the cold metal of her sedan. Rainwater streamed down the windshield between them like thin rivers of silver under the gas station lights. Tyler glanced again toward the passenger seat. Whatever metallic object he had seen beneath it was gone now, hidden by shadows and reflections. Inside the convenience store, more people had gathered near the windows. A woman holding a coffee cup whispered something to the cashier, while another customer quietly recorded with his phone held low against his chest. The entire station carried that strange silence that comes right before a storm breaks harder. Keller circled slowly around the back of the sedan. "License plate came back registered to a rental company," he said. "You planning on telling me why?" Naomi kept her voice steady. My car is in the shop. Where are you coming from? Virginia. Keller stopped walking. Virginia? Yes, sir. That is over 1,300 miles away. I know. He studied her for a long moment, suspicious, narrowing his eyes. That is a long drive for somebody having trouble paying for gas. Naomi closed her eyes briefly as rain dripped from her lashes. I never said I could not pay for gas. Your card declined 3 times. Because the bank froze the account after multiple fuel stops across state lines. Keller gave another short laugh. Convenient explanation. Tyler shifted beside the patrol SUV again. Sir, maybe dispatch can verify the account issue. Keller ignored him completely. His attention remained fixed on Naomi's sedan. Open the trunk. Naomi slowly turned her head. Officer, there is equipment in there that cannot be disturbed. Cannot. Keller repeated with a smirk. You federal now? Naomi hesitated. Only for a second. But Keller caught it immediately. That is what I thought. He moved toward the rear of the vehicle and pressed the trunk release beside the driver door. The trunk popped open with a dull click. Tyler stepped closer, curiosity overcoming his discomfort. Inside sat a large black case secured with silver biometric locks. No clothing, no groceries, no travel bags. Just the case, perfectly centered inside the trunk like it had been placed there with military precision. Rain tapped softly across its matte surface. Keller stared at it. Well now, Naomi turned fully away from the car for the first time, her expression tightening slightly. Please do not touch that. Why? Keller asked. Because it does not belong to me. Then whose is it? Naomi did not answer immediately. Thunder rolled again somewhere over the interstate. The gas station lights flickered once before stabilizing. Tyler noticed Naomi glance toward the digital clock inside the store again. 11:46 p.m. For minutes had passed. Her breathing changed slightly after seeing the time. Not panic. Anticipation. Keller crouched beside the black case. Biometric locks? He muttered. What are you transporting? Naomi's voice became firmer now. Officer Keller, I am asking you respectfully to step away from that case. Tyler looked between them. Sir, maybe we should wait for confirmation before opening anything. Keller's jaw tightened. You afraid of a suitcase, Tyler? No, sir. It just feels. He searched for the word while staring at the unfamiliar insignia stamped faintly into the corner of the case. Official. Keller reached toward the handle anyway. The instant his fingers brushed the metal, a sharp electronic tone suddenly echoed from inside the trunk. Everyone froze. Then a small red light blinked alive on the case, steady and bright against the falling rain. The red light continued blinking inside the trunk, slow and deliberate, reflecting against the rainwater pooling along the edge of the bumper. Nobody moved. Even Officer Keller's hand hovered uncertainly above the black case now. The electronic tone repeated once more, softer this time, followed by a low mechanical hum from somewhere inside the lock itself. Tyler swallowed hard. Sir, he said quietly. Keller straightened and forced a dismissive scoff. Probably some overpriced security system. But his voice no longer carried the same confidence. Naomi stood several feet away beside the rear passenger door, rain dripping from the edge of her hood. Her hands remained visible at her sides. Calm. Controlled. Yet Tyler noticed something had changed in her face. Not fear. Resignation. Like someone watching events unfold exactly the way they expected. Inside the convenience store, the cashier slowly locked the front entrance without taking his eyes off the parking lot. The metallic click echoed faintly through the rain. One of the truckers near the diesel pumps muttered, "This does not feel normal." Keller ignored everyone. "Open it," he demanded. Naomi looked directly at him for the first time since the stop began. "I cannot. Cannot or will not. Neither. It requires federal clearance." Keller laughed again, but the sound felt forced now. "You expect me to believe you are carrying federal property in a rental sedan, wearing a $10 hoodie?" Naomi did not react to the insult. "I expect you to stop touching things you do not understand." Tyler exhaled slowly through his nose. The words hung in the air heavier than the rain. Keller stepped closer toward Naomi until the flashing patrol lights washed blue across both their faces. "Listen carefully," he said. "You have been evasive since the moment we arrived. You are transporting unidentified equipment across state lines. Your bank account is frozen. Your credentials are hidden. And now you are throwing around federal threats. From where I stand, that sounds suspicious. Naomi's voice stayed low and steady. From where I stand, Officer Keller, you decided I was suspicious before you asked a single question. Tyler looked down immediately. Keller's jaw tightened. The rain intensified again, drumming against the gas station canopy overhead. Somewhere beyond the interstate, a siren wailed faintly in the distance before fading away. Naomi glanced once more toward the digital clock inside the store. 11:49 p.m. 1 minute left. Keller noticed. What happens at midnight? He asked sharply. Naomi remained silent. Tyler watched her eyes carefully. They carried exhaustion, but beneath it sat something else now. Urgency. The kind people carried when lives depended on timing. Keller suddenly grabbed the edge of the trunk lid with irritation. I am done playing games. He reached toward the biometric case again. The instant his fingers touched the metal surface, the red light stopped blinking. Everything went still. Then a cold mechanical voice emerged from inside the case itself. Federal authorization breach detected. Every person in the station froze. The computerized voice continued calmly through the rain. Stand by for remote verification. Tyler stepped backward instinctively. Sir, maybe we should call this in. Keller stared at the case, stunned for the first time all night. Then another sound cut through the storm. A phone ringing. Not a normal ringtone. Sharp. Metallic. Rhythmic. Naomi slowly turned her head toward the front passenger seat of her sedan. Buried beneath a folded jacket, a black satellite phone glowed with an incoming call. The screen displayed no number. Only 2 words in white letters. Priority 1. The ringing echoed across the silent gas station while rainwater slid down the windows and pooled beneath everyone's feet. Nobody moved toward the phone. Nobody spoke. Even Keller seemed suddenly unsure whether he was still in control of the situation at all. The satellite phone kept ringing inside the car, sharp and mechanical, each tone cutting through the rain like a countdown nobody understood. Officer Keller stared through the passenger window without moving. The flashing patrol lights reflected across the black screen of the device, painting red and blue streaks over the words Priority 1. Tyler Dean looked toward Naomi. Should somebody answer that? He asked quietly. Naomi's eyes never left the phone. Yes. Keller snapped back immediately. Nobody touches anything. But even he sounded uncertain now. The confidence that had filled his voice 20 minutes earlier had thinned beneath the cold rain and the strange chain of events unfolding around them. The electronic lock on the black case remained glowing red inside the trunk. Silent now. Waiting. Keller slowly opened the passenger door of the sedan. Rain blew sideways into the vehicle, carrying the smell of wet asphalt and gasoline. The satellite phone continued ringing against the fabric seat. Keller hesitated before finally grabbing it. The moment he touched the device, the ringing stopped. Complete silence swallowed the gas station. Even the truck engines nearby seemed quieter somehow. Keller looked at the screen. Incoming secure line. Accept or decline. Tyler took another uneasy step backward. Sir, maybe dispatch should handle this. Keller ignored him again and pressed accept. A burst of static crackled through the speaker. Then a calm male voice filled the rainy night. Identify yourself immediately. Keller straightened instinctively. Officer Ryan Keller, Arlington County Police Department. Silence followed for one long second. Then the voice returned colder this time. Why are you in possession of that device? Keller glanced toward Naomi before answering. We conducted a lawful stop involving suspicious activity. Describe the individual being detained. Keller looked directly at Naomi now, standing beneath the gas station lights with rainwater dripping steadily from her sleeves. Black female, mid-30s, transporting unidentified federal equipment. Tyler closed his eyes briefly the instant the words left Keller's mouth. Another pause crackled through the speaker. Then the voice spoke again, lower and more dangerous than before. Officer Keller, listen carefully. The individual you are detaining is Dr. Naomi Carter. Her transport authorization falls under Department of Defense emergency clearance. Every person within hearing distance froze. The rain continued falling softly around them, but the parking lot itself felt suspended in time. Keller swallowed once. Department of Defense? Correct. The voice sharpened. You are currently interfering with a classified federal operation. Tyler stared at Naomi in disbelief. But Naomi herself showed no triumph. No anger. Only exhaustion. Like she had been trying to avoid this exact moment all night. Keller tightened his grip on the phone. Nobody identified themselves before now. Dr. Carter should never have been forced to. The words landed hard in the silence. Inside the convenience store, somebody lowered their recording phone slowly. The cashier behind the counter looked pale beneath the fluorescent lights. Keller forced himself to recover. If this is legitimate, then why is she driving alone through Texas with restricted equipment? Naomi finally spoke before the voice on the phone could answer. Because if the transfer had failed tonight, military satellites protecting 2 carrier groups in the Pacific would have gone offline by sunrise. Tyler's eyes widened immediately. Keller stared at her. What? Naomi looked toward the blinking red case inside the trunk. The system inside that container updates encrypted orbital defense routing. It had to reach Fort Worth before midnight. Keller glanced automatically toward the digital clock inside the gas station. 11:57 p.m. 3 minutes left. The voice on the satellite phone returned, colder than before. Officer Keller, you are ordered to release Dr. Carter immediately and secure the perimeter. Keller's face lost color beneath the spinning blue lights. Who exactly am I speaking to? Another brief pause. Then came the answer. General Adrian Wolf. Pentagon Command. The entire gas station went completely still. Rainwater rolled slowly off the edge of the gas station canopy while nobody spoke. The words Pentagon Command still seemed to hang in the air like thunder after a lightning strike. Officer Ryan Keller stood motionless beside Naomi's sedan, the satellite phone pressed tightly against his ear. The flashing patrol lights reflected across his face, but the confidence that had filled his expression earlier was gone now. Tyler Dean could actually see it happening in real time. The slow collapse of certainty inside a man who had believed he controlled the situation only minutes before. General, with respect, Keller said carefully, we had no indication this woman was connected to a federal operation. The voice on the phone answered immediately. Dr. Carter's credentials are not public access. They are compartmentalized under national defense authorization. Keller glanced toward Naomi again. She stood quietly beside pump number 4, soaked by rain, her tired eyes fixed on the blinking red case inside the trunk. She did not look powerful. She did not look dangerous. She looked like a woman who had spent days without rest carrying responsibilities nobody else at the station could even imagine. Tyler noticed her hands trembling slightly now from the cold. The transfer window closes in 2 minutes. General Wolf continued through the phone. Has the package been compromised? Naomi answered before Keller could. Negative. Lock integrity remains active. The general paused briefly. After hearing her voice, Dr. Carter, report. Naomi stepped closer to the open passenger door. Unexpected stop, delayed arrival. No physical breach occurred. Estimated arrival time to Fort Worth? Naomi looked toward the highway beyond the rain-swept parking lot. 33 minutes if roads stay clear. Another pause crackled through the speaker. Understood. Escort team is rerouting to your location now. Keller blinked. Escort team. The answer came calmly. Federal Protection Detail. At that exact moment, distant headlights appeared at the far edge of the interstate exit ramp. Not one vehicle. Several. Black SUVs moving fast through the rain without sirens. Tyler felt his stomach tighten immediately. The truckers near the diesel pumps noticed them too. One quietly climbed back inside his cab and shut the door. The convenience store cashier stepped farther away from the windows. Even the customers recording videos began lowering their phones. Something larger than ordinary police business had entered the night. Keller finally handed the satellite phone back toward Naomi. His movements looked stiff now, uncertain. Naomi accepted it carefully and checked the screen. 11:58 p.m. 1 minute remaining. Dr. Carter, General Wolf said. The update must begin immediately upon arrival. Fleet Command cannot sustain another delay. Understood, sir. Keller stared at her. Fleet Command. Naomi slipped the satellite phone back into the passenger seat. 2 naval carrier groups are operating under partial blind coverage tonight. The system inside that case restores encrypted satellite coordination before morning deployment. Tyler looked stunned. You mean military ships? Naomi nodded once. Thousands of personnel. The rain softened slightly, turning into a steady mist drifting across the pumps beneath the fluorescent lights. Keller rubbed a hand across the back of his neck. For the first time all night, he looked genuinely uncomfortable. Not angry. Not defensive. Ashamed. Dr. Carter, he said quietly. If we misunderstood the situation, Naomi looked at him before he could finish. Her voice stayed calm, but there was weight behind every word now. You never asked who I was. Keller opened his mouth, then stopped. Because she was right. Tyler lowered his eyes toward the wet pavement. The blinking lights reflected in shallow puddles around their boots like fractured pieces of red and blue glass. In the distance, the black SUVs were getting closer fast. Their headlights cut through the rain in perfect formation. Naomi slowly pulled her hood tighter around her face against the cold wind. Then she glanced once toward the digital clock inside the convenience store. 11:59 p.m. Exactly 60 seconds remained. The black SUVs swept into the gas station almost silently, tires hissing against the wet pavement as they formed a tight perimeter around pump number 4. Their headlights cut through the rain like white blades, illuminating the drifting mist beneath the canopy. Nobody inside the station moved. The truckers remained inside their cabs. The cashier stood frozen near the coffee machine with both hands pressed flat against the counter. Even the flashing patrol lights suddenly looked small beside the dark convoy that had just arrived. The lead SUV stopped only a few feet from Naomi's sedan. Its doors opened immediately. Men in dark rain jackets stepped out with precise movements, earpieces glowing faint blue beneath the station lights. No raised voices. No panic. Just controlled urgency. One of them walked directly toward the biometric case in the trunk, while another scanned the parking lot with calm professional eyes. Tyler Dean felt his heartbeat speeding up. He had never seen federal personnel move like that before. Everything about them carried quiet authority. Officer Keller stepped backward instinctively as one of the agents approached him. "Officer Keller?" the man asked. "Yes. Please step away from the vehicle." Keller obeyed without argument. That alone felt unreal to Tyler. 20 minutes earlier, Keller had controlled every inch of the scene. Now he looked like someone standing in the middle of a conversation far above his understanding. The rear passenger door of the lead SUV opened slowly. General Adrian Wolfe stepped out beneath the rain. He was older than Tyler expected, silver-haired, tall, wearing a dark overcoat that moved sharply in the wind. No dramatic entrance. No raised voice. But the moment he appeared, the entire atmosphere shifted again. The agents straightened subtly around him. Naomi finally exhaled for what felt like the first time all night. Wolfe walked directly toward her through the rain without acknowledging anyone else first. "Dr. Carter," he said calmly. "Status." Naomi brushed wet strands of hair back from her face. "Transfer remains secure. Delay approximately 22 minutes. Wolfe nodded once. "Can the update still complete before deployment?" "Yes, sir. Barely." He studied her carefully, then glanced toward the soaked hoodie, the trembling hands, the rainwater dripping from her sleeves. "You have not slept." Naomi gave a tired half-smile that vanished almost immediately. "Neither has Fleet Command." For the first time all night, Tyler saw something human pass across the general's face. Respect. Quiet and immediate. Wolfe turned toward the black case in the trunk. One of the agents had already connected a handheld scanner to the biometric lock. Green lights flashed rapidly across the device. "Integrity confirmed," the agent reported. "No breach." Wolfe nodded. "Begin transfer prep." Keller finally found his voice again. "General Wolfe, sir, if I may explain." Wolfe turned slowly toward him. The rain tapped softly against the shoulders of his coat, while blue police lights reflected across the wet pavement between them. "Explain what exactly?" Keller hesitated. Tyler looked down immediately. Nobody answered. Because there was nothing to explain that did not sound worse out loud. Naomi stood quietly beside the sedan, arms folded loosely against the cold. She did not interrupt. She did not embarrass him further. Wolfe studied Keller for one long, uncomfortable second before speaking again. "Dr. Carter crossed 4 states tonight carrying material tied to active military defense operations," he said calmly. "And yet your first assumption was criminal intent." Keller swallowed hard. "Sir, we were following procedure." Naomi's eyes lowered briefly at those words. Wolfe noticed. "Procedure," he repeated quietly. Then he looked toward Tyler instead. "Did either of you ask who she was before searching her vehicle?" Tyler could not answer. Rainwater rolled off the edge of his hat onto the pavement below. Wolfe nodded slowly like he already knew the truth. Then he turned back toward Naomi. "Dr. Carter, your escort is ready." Naomi glanced once toward the digital clock glowing inside the gas station window. Midnight exactly. Somewhere beyond the clouds, satellites were already shifting into new alignment above the Pacific Ocean. The rain finally began to ease, thinning into a cold mist that drifted across the parking lot beneath the fluorescent lights. Federal agents moved quickly around Naomi's sedan now, loading the biometric case into the rear compartment of the lead SUV with careful precision. Every motion looked practiced, silent, efficient. The gas station no longer felt like a roadside stop outside Arlington. It felt like restricted ground. Tyler Dean stood beside the patrol SUV with his hands resting awkwardly on his belt, unsure where to look anymore. The blue and red lights still flashed across the wet pavement, but they no longer belonged to the scene. They looked small now. Temporary. Naomi leaned briefly against the side of her sedan, while one of the agents handed her a tablet for verification. Up close, Tyler could finally see how exhausted she truly was. Tiny tremors ran through her fingers from cold and fatigue. There were faint creases pressed into her skin from hours on the road. Her sneakers were soaked completely through. Yet every federal agent who approached her spoke with immediate respect. Not forced respect. Real respect. General Wolf remained near the open SUV door, reviewing updates through an encrypted device while rainwater slid down the shoulders of his coat. Keller stood several feet away alone. Nobody had told him where to stand. Nobody had ordered him to stay. But something about the scene itself had pushed him there naturally, out of the center, out of authority. Tyler glanced toward him carefully. Keller looked older now somehow. The hard confidence he carried earlier had dissolved beneath the weight of what had actually happened tonight. Naomi finished signing the transfer verification and handed the tablet back. One of the agents nodded immediately. Satellite routing sequence initiated, he reported toward Wolf. Pacific Command confirms signal restoration in progress. Wolf exhaled quietly. Good. For a brief moment, the tension that had wrapped around the entire station all night seemed to loosen. The operation had not failed. Somewhere thousands of miles away, systems were reconnecting above dark ocean water, while sailors who would never know Naomi Carter's name continued their duties beneath protected skies. Tyler looked at her differently now. Not as a suspect. Not even as a scientist. As someone carrying invisible responsibility while strangers judged her by a hoodie, an old sedan, and the color of her skin under gas station lights. Naomi slowly rubbed warmth back into her hands. Keller finally stepped forward. Dr. Carter, he said quietly. She looked at him calmly. Keller struggled for words. Tyler had never seen that happen before. I made assumptions tonight, Keller admitted. Rain dripped steadily from the brim of his hat onto the pavement between them. I should have handled this differently. Naomi held his gaze for a long second. No anger sat in her expression now. Just tired honesty. Officer Keller, she said softly. You saw a black woman alone at night and decided the story before I even spoke. The words landed harder than shouting ever could have. Keller lowered his eyes immediately. Nobody interrupted her. Even the agents nearby remained still. Naomi glanced briefly toward Tyler. Your partner noticed something was wrong before you did. Tyler looked stunned hearing that. Wolf watched quietly beside the SUV, saying nothing. Naomi pulled her soaked hoodie tighter around herself against the cold wind drifting through the station. The dangerous part is not one bad stop, she continued calmly. It is how normal it felt to everyone watching. Silence spread again across the lot. Inside the convenience store, the customers who had recorded earlier now avoided looking outside at all. The cashier slowly removed his phone from the counter and slipped it into his pocket. Keller swallowed hard. Tyler stared down at the puddles near his boots where red and blue lights rippled across the rainwater like broken pieces of glass. Naomi looked toward the highway one final time. People should not need Pentagon clearance to be treated with dignity, she said quietly. General Wolf closed the rear SUV door behind her with a soft metallic click. Nobody had an answer for that. The rain had almost stopped completely now, leaving only a fine mist drifting beneath the gas station lights like smoke after a fire. Water slid slowly across the pavement toward the storm drains while the convoy idled quietly near the pumps. The urgency that had consumed the station minutes earlier had shifted into something heavier. Reflection. Embarrassment. Silence. Naomi stood beside the open SUV door while one of the federal agents handed her a dry black jacket embroidered with a small Department of Defense insignia near the collar. She slipped it over her soaked hoodie without ceremony, rubbing warmth back into her fingers afterward. Tyler Dean watched the scene from beside the patrol SUV, unable to shake the feeling that the night had changed something inside him permanently. General Wolf checked his watch once before turning toward Naomi again. "Fort Worth confirms readiness," he said. "You saved the window by less than 4 minutes." Naomi gave a tired nod. That was always the margin. Wolf studied her carefully. "You should have had a full security team from Virginia." Naomi looked toward the highway lights, glowing faintly beyond the station. "Budget cuts," she answered dryly. One of the agents nearby allowed himself the smallest smile. Wolf did not. "That decision will be reviewed tomorrow." Keller remained standing near the edge of the lot alone beneath the spinning patrol lights. Rainwater darkened his uniform across the shoulders and sleeves, but he seemed not to notice anymore. He looked toward Naomi several times before finally walking forward again. Tyler could see the hesitation in every step now. The same man who had barked commands earlier now looked unsure how to begin a sentence. Naomi noticed him approaching but did not move away. Keller stopped, several feet from her. "Dr. Carter," he said quietly, "I owe you an apology." The words sounded uncomfortable coming out of him, but real. Naomi listened without interrupting. Keller glanced briefly toward the federal convoy surrounding the station. "I kept thinking authority looked a certain way tonight," he admitted. "And when you did not fit that picture," his voice trailed off. Naomi folded her arms lightly against the cold. "You filled in the blanks yourself?" she said softly. Keller nodded once. Tyler lowered his eyes again because the truth in her words hit him too. Naomi looked toward the convenience store windows where several customers still lingered silently behind the glass. "It happens every day to people who never get this kind of ending," she continued. "No convoy comes for them. No general steps out of a black SUV." The wind moved gently through the station, rattling a loose advertisement sign near the ice machine. Somewhere down the highway, a semi-truck blasted its horn into the darkness before fading away again. Wolf watched the exchange quietly without interfering. Keller rubbed rainwater from the back of his neck. "I want to do better than this," he admitted. Naomi studied him for a long second. "Then start listening before deciding who belongs where." Tyler looked up immediately after hearing that. Naomi noticed. "You paused tonight," she told him. "That matters." Tyler seemed caught off guard. "I should have said more." Naomi shook her head gently. "Most people say nothing at all." The words settled heavily over the parking lot. Even Keller looked toward his younger partner differently after hearing them. Wolf finally stepped forward beside Naomi. "Dr. Carter," he said calmly, "we need to move." Naomi nodded once, then glanced back toward her old silver sedan sitting beneath the fluorescent lights. Rainwater still clung to the hood in tiny reflective beads. Such an ordinary car for someone carrying the weight of military systems across half the country. One of the federal agents stepped toward the vehicle keys. "We will have your car transported securely, ma'am." Naomi thanked him softly. Then she turned toward Keller one final time. "The uniform is supposed to make people feel safe," she said quietly. "Do not forget that again." Keller could not answer. The only sound left was the low hum of engines beneath the fading storm. The convoy pulled away from the gas station just after midnight, black SUVs disappearing one by one into the wet Texas highway while their headlights faded beneath the low clouds. The storm had finally passed. Only thin streams of rainwater remained sliding across the empty pavement under the fluorescent lights. Naomi Carter sat quietly in the back seat beside the secured biometric case, watching the station disappear through tinted glass. General Adrian Wolf reviewed updates beside her while encrypted notifications continued arriving across his tablet screen. "Pacific Fleet confirms full restoration," he said after a moment. "All systems stable." Naomi leaned her head lightly against the seat and closed her eyes for the first time all night. Not relief exactly. Exhaustion. The kind that settled deep into the bones after carrying pressure for too long. Wolf studied her briefly before speaking again. "You handled yourself with remarkable restraint tonight." Naomi opened her eyes slowly. "I was trying to get satellites online, sir. Not ruin 2 police officers." Wolf looked out toward the dark highway ahead. "Most people with your clearance would have demanded consequences immediately." Naomi watched raindrops slide sideways across the window. Consequences are easy, she said softly. Changing people is harder. The SUV continued west through the sleeping Texas roads while the gas station behind them slowly returned to normal. Customers drifted back toward the pumps. Truck engines restarted. The cashier unlocked the front entrance again, though his eyes kept wandering toward the empty stretch of pavement where the convoy had stood only minutes earlier. Officer Ryan Keller remained near the edge of the lot beside his patrol vehicle long after everyone else began moving again. The flashing lights were finally turned off now. Without them, the station looked smaller, quieter. Tyler Dean stood nearby with both hands tucked into his soaked jacket pockets. Neither officer spoke for a while. Water dripped steadily from the edge of the canopy onto the pavement between them. Finally, Tyler looked toward his partner. "I did not see a threat tonight," he admitted quietly. Keller stared at the dark highway where the SUVs had vanished. "Neither did I," he answered after a long pause. "I just stopped seeing her as a person before I even knew anything about her." The honesty in his voice surprised Tyler. Keller slowly removed his hat and rubbed rainwater from his forehead. "Do you know what bothers me most?" he asked quietly. Tyler shook his head. Keller looked toward the convenience store window where their reflections stared faintly back at them through the glass. "She stayed calmer than we did." Tyler thought about Naomi standing alone beside the sedan beneath flashing lights, soaked by rain, carrying responsibility bigger than anyone there understood, while strangers questioned her character before learning her name. "Yeah," Tyler said softly. "She did." The night air had turned colder after the storm. Somewhere overhead, hidden beyond the clouds, satellites now moved silently across the dark sky, carrying signals most people would never notice. Military crews in distant oceans continued their shifts, unaware that a tired woman in a soaked hoodie had protected systems keeping them connected only an hour earlier. Naomi never asked for applause, never demanded recognition. At 2:13 that morning, the convoy reached Fort Worth. Federal technicians immediately rolled the biometric case into a secured operations building glowing with pale blue monitor light. Naomi followed them through the long corridor, her footsteps slow from exhaustion. Before disappearing through the final security door, she paused briefly beside a large window overlooking the quiet parking lot outside. Rain still shimmered across the concrete beneath distant floodlights. For a moment, she saw the gas station again in her mind. The flashing patrol lights, the suspicion, the silence. Then Tyler lowering his eyes in shame. Keller standing speechless in the rain. Naomi rested one hand lightly against the cold glass. "Respect should never arrive only after proof," she whispered softly to herself. Then she turned and walked deeper into the building, while behind her the heavy security doors closed with a quiet metallic click. Outside, the storm clouds slowly drifted apart, revealing a sky full of distant steady stars.